In the name of God, the most gracious, the especially merciful. As my comedic namesake would say, we are quite in the pickle, aren't we? This is too important a moment in our tortured history for us as a people to be frivolous about this moment, to be lazy about this moment, to allow ourselves to be distracted by those not interested in the upliftment of all our people. What are they interested in? The inhumane maintenance of a neo-colonial status quo that has transitioned slavery and indentureship to a production line of low-paid, minimum wage workers whose only hope is to be the labor supply of the P&M 1%ers and their financiers. It is the status quo that has buried us in this constitutional abyss, as the political leader of the opposition so aptly named it. And the only way out of this abyss is for truth and transparency to claim its rightful place in our democracy. And my dear brothers and sisters, democracy is a messy thing. There are ebbs and flows. People, friends, colleagues, even family, because of contrasting allegiances, become estranged, adversarial. This is no arena for the faint-hearted. Any pretense to force civility is usually for the beneficiaries of the status quo. And I'm angry with our President, Paula May Weeks. I am angry. And this is why I describe her as being insipid. Because I looked and spoke with many people who attested to her brilliance as a jurist, to her struggle to achieve what she achieved. The quintessential example of black womanhood achieving excellence. So how could she be fooled by the quintessential jackass of our political generation? How she could allow Keith Rowley to convince her, the quintessential example of struggle, of brilliance, of excellence, to misbehave in public office. I am angry, and I'm still angry with her. And I'll remain angry, and I'll remain bringing it to the consciousness of our people until she explains how did that happen? How did she allow that? So here we are. And although the noblest of our people can be found among the poor and working class of Trinidad and Tobago, there is no nobility in poverty. What is noble is the pursuit of economic justice, social equality. That is where nobility lies. If there was nobility to be found in poverty, Faris Harari, who claims lineage with the most noblest of families, as a supposed descendant of Islam's final prophet, he would forgo that $23 million that his family benefits from in government contracts in these trying times. If there was nobility in poverty, P&M cabinet ministers would not have recused themselves 210 times in 5 years. And that is why this government and their handlers, their facilitators, would like to maintain the status quo. So Rowley and his gang of thieves could keep doing what they are best at, selling out the nation's patrimony. So NGC board, $500 million indemnity and faulty planning. But to invest in disadvantaged communities of Trinidad and Tobago, no money for you. Take a hamper, a market box, some seedlings. But keep in Petrotrin 10,000 workers and more employed. No way. Put in programs and trainings for poor communities. No way. PNM is only interested in these communities to be the grist for the mill of Sabga and Mute. Let's talk clear. You think it's only the 1% financiers of the PNM keeping Keith Rowley and this band of kleptocrats in power? No, people. Take a look at the long and varied list of Balizé snakes coming out from under their rocks to distract, defer, spin the narrative of what is clearly incidents of significant wrongdoing in office by the president, by the prime minister, and by the former chairman of the Police Service Commission, Blissy Prasad. Spin it, flip it, juggle it, kick it down the road, however you do. The truth is what it is. Once that merit list was delivered, there was a constitutional mandate for the president to deliver it to Parliament. Everything else is a distraction. Did the Prime Minister have genuine concerns? Did Blissy Prasad have genuine concerns? All of that is superfluous to the point at hand. That merit list was delivered to the president and therefore not delivered to the Parliament. That is misbehavior in public office on the part of the president, and she so claimed that there was indeed some public official, which we know to be Keith Rowley, who interfered in that process. That is illegality. And you come with all your Balizé snakes claiming to be independents, talking about, I have been showing a lack of civility because I called out the president for what it is. Not because there's personal animus between her and I. I appreciate, as I've said before, her struggle. But there's illegality. And she must be held to account. So if Ferdy Ferreira, Noble Philip, Earl Pilgrim, Earl Bess, and all of these who would like to talk about civility, Ferdy Ferreira, you claim that in your 60 years you have not seen anything as disgraceful as my description of an illegal act by the president. In that 60 years, weren't you privy to what the PNM goons and thugs subjected Jean Miles to? When she called out the PNM government for their gas station racket, billions of dollars stolen by O'Halloran and Williams, Privat, D'Souza. What you all subjected that beautiful Trinbagonian woman to? Gang raped, humiliated, decimated in front of everybody, her friends and family, until she went completely off, mad. And you want to talk about civility? Why don't you talk about civility when you pass the hills of Mongdo, the hills of Mova and Lavantil, Silots, Bagatelle, Scorpion, Sanganga, going up to the zone in Tenapuna? Talk about those places. It's not a lack of civility when there are no policies in place to make sure that these young men don't turn to crime. So your civility is a pretense of civility to distract, but we will not be distracted. So this black bourgeoisie class, this black upper middle class, who have watched on as their brothers and sisters have borne the brunt of the PNM's brutal, uncaring economic policies, dispelling shameful patronage to selective families at the expense of the majority shareholders of this country, the African and the Indian men and women. Ask yourself, people, why would the PNM covert agents, social media trolls, so-called media independents come out so vociferously against the UNC? when they tried to monetize the vaccine response. We exposed that. We exposed that. So all of this, what we have seen now, all of these deaths, every day, 8, 11, 5, because of a late response by a government who essentially thought they can monetize this thing. And there's documented evidence of that. So when we criticize the healthcare system, when we criticize what we see as what is almost a criminal negligent response, we only have to look to Brazil. Bolsonaro in Brazil about to be charged because of his response. So why is there a sacred cow? Why are there sacred cows in Minister Dialsing and his ban of OGT medical staff? No. As far as we are concerned, as far as the opposition for the people are concerned, there are no sacred cows. And if there's illegality, we will point it out and we will prosecute the case. And you know, in this nest of vipers that we see coming out against the UNC response in the parliament, it's difficult to separate one snake from the other, but we will do so. So for Ferreira and all those who try to distract the population have woken up, and I said so to you before. This is not a population of young men, you think, misled by a PNM education. These are people doing their own research, independent thinkers. These are not people who will blindly follow the PNM and their cult-like dogma. These are people all across Trinidad and Tobago. Despite how the media tries to spin it, despite the acquiescence of all mainstream media, the young people of Trinidad and Tobago will join in this October revolution with the UNC against this corrupt and despicable government. So when we hear senators have demeaned the parliament, when we use every possible means within our right, parliamentary, to prosecute the case, why not talk about how this government has demeaned the treasury, how they have emasculated procurement legislation for their own benefit, how they have tried to establish a new revenue authority that will completely be unaccounted for or unaccountable to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. We will not allow this narrative to go in the direction that the PNM would like. So, I always think it quite prudent to give an example of when Keith Rowley tries to speak about our behavior and the behavior of the opposition, while turning a blind eye to what has happened to Akil Chambers. I mentioned Jill Miles before, but we have Akil Chambers. Tell us about that, Keith Rowley and the PNM. Tell us about the murders of Simeon Daniel and Antonio Francois, while under the care of the Children's Authority, which has become essentially a PNM party group. I don't need anyone to send me the behavior of the British Parliament or the Parliament in Singapore. I need to look no further than my own conscience, my own values, to know that if an illegality has been committed and the actions of our political leader, Kamla Persad-Pisesa, and our parliamentarians were and are completely justified. We will do the heavy lifting, Trinidad and Tobago, but you, in this time, in this moment, you have to at least come to the gym. You have to help us with the heavy lifting, because in the end, if we are to remove this illegal government, this illegal prime minister, this illegal president, we need all the citizens of Trinidad to unite. So, as my friend, lifelong friend would say, where do we go from here? And I'll give you an example. I played in Greece in the winter of '93. My coach was an older coach, Mr. Karapatis. And he was more a philosopher than a coach. 75 years old, very frail, but full of wisdom. And we had a FA Cup game against a team in Kavala in Greece, mountainside. You know, they were too excited to play against a big team from Thessaloniki. So their stadium was full, small stadium. I remember this is 1993. And all during the game, the first half, racist insults about me, of course. I was the only black player on the field. Racist insults, Mavro Putana, this, and all the worst insults. But we were leading 4-0 in 30 minutes. And I was completely killing it. In my prime. As we were walking off the field at halftime, I could hear the insults. I could see their faces. You could know these were hard-working men and boys. Faces red from the sun. And they were running down to meet us right at the tunnel to go into the locker rooms. And I remember seeing someone from the corner of my eye with a hate, saying the worst, the vilest things, running to try and meet me at that entrance. And I kept my eye on him, but I'm walking quickly. And our coach, Karapatis, right behind me. And as I reached close to the entrance, I saw him push aside the security guard and spit at me. I remember moving back, and I returned one right back, right in his face, and ran like hell to the dressing room. Just hearing the noise, 30 people trying to get into the locker room, and Karapatis behind me. I sit down in the locker room, and I look on, waiting for what I know would be a very strong reaction from Mr. Karapatis. All the players moved away from me as Mr. Karapatis came in, full of water, drenched with water. Apparently they drenched him with water, they spat at him. He came into the room with an anger on his face. Came straight to me. 75 years old, frail. Shook me with a violence that I had never experienced except maybe from my dad. Almost picked me up. And he said to me, "Acondia den inesto a era, inesto a enis." Nobility is not found in the air. It's found among the ignoble. And he said, "Bravo, David, bravo." He said to me, "Well done, well done." In other words, nobility must be found where the ignoble is. And that's who we have to deal with in this country, with this PNM government. Ignoble people. And we will fight the fight by every legal and parliamentary means possible. And we will win this fight for the benefit of the people. As we go forward, I ask our people to put faith in our political leader, Kamla Prasad Bisesa. She's at the forefront of this fight. And we will take this to the PNM government. And we will win this fight in the interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. As I always say and leave you, love in the house all the time.